So let's talk about design thinking. You've probably heard this term thrown around everywhere, from scrappy startups to massive corporations. But what does it actually mean? Today, we're going to demystify this powerful framework for innovation and break it down step by step. All right, to kick things off, let's start with a question. When you look at some of the most successful, most innovative companies out there, what do they really have in common? You see some of the heavy hitters here: Apple, Google, Airbnb, P&G. By the way, the text you see on the screen is in Romanian, and it just says companies that use design thinking. We're talking about everything from enterprise software to the car you drive or the snacks you buy. So what's the secret sauce? It's not just about having the best tech or the biggest marketing budget. It's about a very specific way of thinking, a method for solving problems.
And that secret is design thinking. At its very heart, it is a human-centered approach. It's this structured process that puts real people, their needs, their feelings, their frustrations, right at the center of the entire problem-solving journey.
But honestly, to really get it, you have to look beyond the textbook definition. See, design thinking is more than just a series of steps. It's a fundamental shift in your perspective. It's all about embracing curiosity, being okay with a little bit of uncertainty, and just being relentlessly focused on the human experience.
And that focus on the human experience, well, that leads us straight to the absolute foundation of this whole thing. Every single project, every idea, every solution in the world of design thinking begins with one thing: empathy.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? You simply cannot solve a problem that you don't deeply understand. And you can't really understand it unless you know and genuinely care about the people who are living with that problem every single day. Now, what I love about this slide is how it breaks empathy down into actual, tangible parts. It's not just some fuzzy feeling. You can see the labels here in Romanian, so let me just walk you through them. Up at the top, vezi lumea lor means see their world, putting yourself in their shoes. To the right, îi apreciezi ca ființe oameni means you appreciate them as human beings, you don't judge. Down at the bottom, le înțelegi sentimentele means you understand their feelings. And finally, communicați înțelegeri means you communicate that you get it. This is the bedrock we build everything else on. Okay, so you've built that foundation of empathy, you've done the work to understand. Now what? How does this actually work in practice? Well, that's where the journey begins. This image here is our roadmap, showing the 5 core stages. But here's the crucial thing I want you to notice. Look at the arrows. This is not a straight line. It's a cycle. You might test a prototype and realize, whoops, we need to go all the way back to redefine the problem, or even back to the empathy stage because you missed something important. It's meant to be fluid and iterative. So let's just quickly walk through these stages. It all starts with empathy. Then you use all those insights to define a clear, human-centered problem. After that, it's time to ideate. That means brainstorming a ton of ideas, no judgment allowed. From there, you build prototypes to make those ideas real and tangible. And finally, you test those prototypes with actual users to learn, to refine, and, you guessed it, to start the cycle all over again. And this really gets to one of the most powerful principles in all of design thinking. Show, don't just tell. Instead of getting bogged down trying to create a perfect, complex plan, the idea is to build something simple, something fast, and maybe a little messy, just to get it in front of people so you can start learning. And you can really see that evolution right here. An idea can start as nothing more than a few scribbles on a piece of paper, like you see on the left. You test that, you get feedback, and you learn something. Then, based on what you learned, you might build a slightly more detailed digital version, which eventually evolves into a polished, interactive prototype like the one on the right. Every single step is a chance to learn and lower the risk before you pour a ton of time and money into it. But let's rewind for just a second to a really critical part of that journey, the define stage. After you've spent all this time gathering observations and feeling empathy, how in the world do you synthesize all of that into a clear problem to solve? Well, there's a fantastic tool for that. It's called the problem tree, and this super simple visual tool basically forces you to look past the obvious symptoms of a problem and dig way down to find out what's really causing it. It works exactly like a real tree. The branches, those are the things you see, right? The symptoms. The trunk, well, that's the core problem you think you're trying to solve. But the most important part? That's the roots. the hidden, deep, underlying causes. Because if you only trim the branches, the problem is just going to grow right back. So, the whole point of this is to shift your focus. It makes sure you're not just putting a band-aid on a symptom. It forces you to address the deep-seated reason the problem even exists in the first place. So we've got this mindset, we've got this toolkit, but don't make the mistake of thinking this is just for designing the next cool app or a better toothbrush. The applications for this way of thinking are incredibly broad. Seriously, the exact same principles of empathizing with a user, defining a core need, and prototyping solutions can be used to reimagine incredibly complex things like government services, educational programs, and, yes, even your own personal and professional life.
I mean, take the High Line in New York City. This thing was just an old, abandoned elevated railway. Instead of just tearing it down, the designers empathized with what the community really needed: more green space, a place to connect. They prototyped the idea and ended up creating one of the most iconic urban parks in the entire world. That is design thinking in action for a city.
And you can totally turn this lens on yourself. What are your real needs and values? That's the empathy part. What's the core challenge you're actually facing in your career? That's defining. What are some possible paths you could take? That's ideation. And how can you test a new direction with, say, a small side project or an online course? You got it. That's prototyping and testing. This quote, which is originally in Romanian, just captures the idea so perfectly. It says, design your day, design your life, transform chaos into simple and meaningful routines for a joyful existence. It's all about shifting from being a passive passenger in your own life to becoming the active designer of it. These principles really empower you to intentionally build a life that actually aligns with what matters to you. By putting people first, by asking deeper questions, and by having the courage to make our ideas real, we can tackle challenges both big and small. So I guess the only question left is, what problem will you solve first?